Okay, so now we're going to go on to more of an advanced example. And let's say we want to look at sales order changes. So we'll take our time on this one. This is something we haven't looked at yet. But often changes to an order, there may be various reasons you want to look at that. You want to look at the changes to an order that have maybe been to correct an error or led to an error, or you want to look at who's changing orders, or you may want to look at the types of changes going on to sales orders because orders that require changes are taking longer to get through our system and can impact some of our metrics. We want generally orders to get through as fast as we can. They typically cost less to the organization. So we can use these two tables. Now there's reports. There's from the environment changes from a single sales order, and there's the changes report. But then the tables can give you some hints on what to look at too, and can be just kind of a quick snapshot. And you run this snapshot by customer support or other groups, and they can often get we'll already have a great idea of what's going on in the order. So real quick, we've got two tables capturing the changes. We've got the header and the item, okay? And these are basically the header, CDHDR, is going to capture for us the object that has the change, basically where the change was made to an order. And then the item table, CDPause, is going to capture all the details of the change. Or, so we might have a change that was made to a sales order, and within that single change, several things were updated. So the tables kind of work together. Sometimes CDHDR is enough. Sometimes you want to pull in CDPause. CDHDR, you can go in and get the document number and the object values, and then feed those into CDPause, and that'll help bring down the selection time, because these can be fairly large tables. We're not just talking about sales order changes. General document changes are captured in both of these tables, so they could be quite big. We'll identify sales order changes by the object VERK BELEG, VERK BELEG, or sales document. Okay, so let's jump into this. We'll go right into the table and do some analysis. And I think just walking through this will make it fairly easy for you, and you'll get some more ideas on what kind of analysis you might want to do on your own with these two. Okay, first up is table CDHDR. Okay, and this will be our basic sales document table here of changes. So again, like we had mentioned on the overview, the object is VERK BELEG. Okay, and I can use this to go in and select only sales order changes. You can see the key here identified by the fields that are in blue. We've got the object class, the object ID, and then the change document number. So if I know my sales orders, I can feed those in there too that I want to look at. If I've pre-selected something from VBOK, I could use the more and fill in those selections. I can also limit it if I want to look at changes by a particular user to see what they're doing, or changes over a certain date range. Maybe we had system issues and I want to go back and look at that and see what we could have done better, and saw all the changes that were done over a particular date range. Changes via a certain transaction, obviously sales order changes VA02 is going to come into play, and I may want to look at those. And there's various other things that I may want to filter on down by, but I'm going to go ahead and just pull up a quick list here. Okay, and we can see in our system, which is rather small, we have 146 changes only. So for us, it wasn't a big deal to not use any of the other filters in your system. You may want to go in and filter that down quite a bit, because you're I guarantee there'll be many, many, many more changes here. So again, like we're saying, we see these are going to all be VERK BELEG in our selection. There, and the object value, we'll get our sales order number, and then our document number. So this is our change document number, okay, that we will then use to go to CDPause to see the details. Here we have the user who made the change, okay, And this can be helpful to look at if you want to look at particular users' changes, or often it could be a background process. So you might have a batch user ID that you may want to pop in there and use that for review. You can filter and look at only change dates, even down to a certain time. And then the transaction that made the change, you're going to see a lot of VAO2, but you may see other transactions too. If something was indirectly updating the sales order and it wasn't expected, we may want to capture those and review those too. And then the object change, this little field basically tells you if it was an update, change to a field, something new is created, an insert, or a type of delete too. So if we have deleted something, we generally don't want to be going in and deleting line items in sales orders. We practice rejecting the line items, so that can be helpful as well. Okay, so I'm going to set a filter here and just capture some of these change document numbers here. And I'll go ahead and use my space bar here. Capture a bunch of those. I'm going to close that down. And then we'll go over to CD pause. Okay. And that's the item, POS basically means item. Okay, so we've got change document item. Okay, same thing here. I can filter it down a little bit more, put in our VERC leg. I could put in our object IDs, but I'm just going to go ahead and feed in some document numbers that I'll copy in. Okay, great. Now some of these other selections, I could limit it to the particular table or table key. If I only want to look at, say, like an example on tables, I only want to look at line item changes. Maybe I really don't care about status or header or other changes, so I could put in VBOP here. Okay, we're going to leave that open now just so you get a good idea of what kind of data is presented here. Okay, but there we go. We get our same order numbers, our change document, and there you can see the table. So here I'm looking at things like line item changes, CONVIA's pricing changes, schedule line changes, dates and quantities maybe, and there we see status changes. I just know offhand that CMGST is going to be a credit status change. We've got FPLT for billing related changes, and let's scroll down here. We've got obviously header changes will come up frequently. So you can filter out and get rid of a lot of the changes maybe you don't care about. If you practice with this a bunch, I think you'll find often VBEP changes are related to ATP and dates, and you see a lot of VBEP changes that don't necessarily mean that somebody's made a change manually. So maybe what I'm after are manual user-driven changes where they've changed something in a customer order. So I might filter out VBEP. I might filter out VBUC, too, and really focus in on VBAK and VBAP and VBKD and look at those. Or maybe there's another analysis I want to do where I only want to focus in on pricing changes. So I could go look at my KONVs, okay? Or if I want to look at credit management, then I might come back and look at my VBUC, for, status changes in credit related information, okay? So the two tables kind of work together, but you can see what this then I could do is I could either just leave this in the system, or I could pull this, drop it down to Excel, and give this off to a analyst to go in and do some further research on those orders, okay? And here, let me point also out old and new values, okay? So what this is real quick here, you can get an idea of what the old value was originally before the change and then what the new value is. Now this can be a little bit more handy to look into the change itself. So if you're in the sales order and you do environment changes, okay, maybe get a little bit more information, but this does give you a little bit of an overview so you can see what's gone on here. Let's pull this up just so you can compare a little bit. I'm going to pull that object value, which is the order number. I'll put that order number in there and then go to changes, okay? And then here I can do the same thing. I can get overview only or get that additional info. And I want to look at the items to get that details here. And there you're going to pull up a list of all the different changes that have been made to that document. Okay, so you can see this is much more detailed, but then you're going to get everything versus, how long is it going to take for me to go in and look at this document by document by document. Here I can just run my list, focus in on the orders that I want to look at, the certain types of changes that I want to look at, and then if I need to do a little bit further research, and the analyst can come in here and look at the particular changes and get a good idea of what's happened with this order. Okay, so that's CDHDR and CDPause analysis. Maybe not used as much, but there are two good tables to know for analysis, especially when you're encountering changes, excessive changes maybe due to system issues or things that could be improved in the system.